Uganda, Burundi, and Rwanda. So this language is commonly spoken around the area. And they are not regarded as part of the citizenry in that country, even though they've been there for centuries. Is the colonial division of the borders that has created this huge problem that overnight they cut over your yard. The other side is in country X and the other side is in country Y.
Now, if indeed we agree there is misinformation on the part of the officials of the South African government about our army's presence there, what interest are they then protecting with this misinformation in your speculation?
They are fearful to deal with the fact. When I listen to the brigadier saying that where they send there to be confined to the barracks, is that a mission? The mission was to go and fight. The mission was to go and fight. And I clearly state from what is written in the decision of the 8th of May 2023. So they are not doing what they were supposed to do. We learned later on that South Africa sent 700 to 800 soldiers to Lubumbashi. And I assume that was for relief duties because you got to keep on relieving the soldiers, particularly the soldiers who've been through a major war with a lot of casualties and injuries. They must be relieved and deal with the trauma for whatever they went through and redeploy, freshen up the military. So I suppose that was to happen. But subsequent to that, South Kivu in Bukavu and the airports have been taken over by the M23. Once the M23 took North Kivu, straightforward, that it was to create a secure environment for peace in the area. They're not doing that. So you can't say they're carrying on with their mission. That's absolutely misleading.
So, in essence, the South Africans, not only are they prisoners of war, they are not doing what they were sent there to do. And if that is the case, I mean, this is they're staying in DRC at taxpayers' cost, not doing what they were supposed to. They were sent there to do. Who does this situation benefit?
It goes to those who deploy them. They deploy them with a short-sighted perspective of the conflict. They thought it's an in and out thing. And now that our soldiers are trapped there, they are not doing anything to alleviate the plight of the soldiers. Soldiers, remember, they are being given a mandate. If tomorrow they are told to withdraw, they will have to negotiate the withdrawal. And the M23 has all the cards, to use Trump's language, to say, are you going to take your weapons or we take your weapons? The M23 can do that. And I learned from some sources in the DRC that actually the M23 have also started to take certain elements of our logistics, like uniform. They're using our uniforms and so on. So that's a very serious situation. Our soldiers are basically prisoners of war. They're staying in barracks. It's not their mandate. They were not mandated to go and sit in the barracks. They were mandated to go and fight and keep this peace. So to hear the brigadier saying, well, they are doing that and so on. And I'm really careful, Mbuyiseni, to start discussing the details that we're getting about our soldiers now when they are in harm's way. I think once they are out of harm's way, we should have an open discussion as a society to look at what happened, what should have happened, what did not happen. Those who are supposed to take political decisions, did they do that? And so that we don't keep on repeating this kind of behavior in future.
I want to take us to a little bit of a more provocative situation. I started by asking about what diplomatic solutions lie on the horizon. But before you deal with that, it looks like we now got Ndate Victor Mbuyiseni. I just need him to paint South African business interest in that part of the world. And then I'm going to come back to you because I want to ask about these business interests in relation to our mission. Ndate Mbuyiseni, welcome to Power Talk.
Good day, Mbuyiseni.
Yes, indeed. Please dig in. I know again we couldn't be able to get you in, and we still have that pressure of time. If you could just define for us, what are the business operations related to South Africans in Kivu?
Well, I wouldn't say chivu, Mbuyiseni, and I must caution, because this is a very dangerous wicket to be on, to link the South African business interests to the mission.
Do not link them, just paint them for me.
Yeah.
I will link them, don't worry.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, there are so many. Oh, no, I have to say, I mean, multi-choice is one, all right? But you have mining companies or mining and quarrying like PPC. You have Rand Gold Resources. You have, I think, Vodacom is in there. There are many, I mean, Metorex. Metorex is an interesting one because it's got Chinese ownership. And Alcatel, Dimension Data. Man, there are so many. And not only those we said, but also companies that do supplies or supply mining companies, because there is mining and then there is mining supplies, which all the services from ventilation to all sorts of services. So it's a lot of businesses. But I would say of relevance to that part of the world would be Rand Gold Resources.
What is Rand Gold Resources?
Well, the company run by it's a mining company. It's a gold mining company. And yeah, by the way, let me also emphasize there are companies that are involved in cobalt. I just can't list them right now. And cobalt is of relevance because when you hear about people talking about Rwanda, Burundi, and Uganda being the gateway or the channel for minerals coming out of the DRC, gold is one of them. Cobalt is another, and what else? But I would say Rand Gold, because of the gold business, is the biggest. They have been there for a long time. They invested more than 10 years ago. It was always a company that we cited as an example of companies from South Africa that are operating in the eastern parts or northeastern parts of the Congo.
If you had to give an estimation of a figure specifically for that company, what are we talking about? How much money are they making, or how much money have they invested?
Rand Gold Resources?
Yes.
It's a listed company, so we are talking...
But in terms of their investment there, how much are we talking about?
Sure. I remember 10 years ago, they were talking hundreds of millions. Remember, this is merged with
in
Barrick
dollars?
Gold, which is... Yeah. Hundreds of millions of it's merged with Barrick Gold, which is one of the largest gold mining companies in the world. And then if you hear about the problem in Mali, that there's a standoff between Barrick Gold, that's the holding company or the company that Rand Gold is part of. So it's not a small. By the way, it's run by Mark Bristow, who's the Durban or KwaZulu-Natal born guy who's the CEO at the moment, the founder of Rand Gold himself. So no, but it's hundreds of millions of dollars. It's not a small business. But don't forget, the government of the DRC has taken Apple company to court in Mbuyiseni regarding the conflict there, accusing them of profiting off the conflict minerals, especially cobalt and those minerals that go into the making of cell phones. Although the charges, I think, were dropped because the court in France last week decided there's not a case, or there was not enough evidence to proceed with the case. But those are the companies that you must look at. Samsung, Apple, Huawei, all the companies that depend on minerals that can be found in the DRC. You always have to talk about them in that bigger, broader context. And lastly, let me just say this. The problems of the DRC go back to 1960 when they overthrew Patrice Lumumba. He was in office as a prime minister for 3 months, and the DRC has never known peace. So Thabo Mbeki is right. That country must run its affairs better, because at the moment it's involving too many people involved. And if you remember, they share a border with 9 other countries. You can understand the destabilizing factor that it has on the rest of the continent.
Victor Khomyeswana, thank you very much. We're still going to just take on the other side of the news, Ndate Kingsley Makubela, but you've got the spokesperson of M23 that will be chatting him in that other side of the hour. Stay tuned with me, Mbuyiseni Ndlozi, here on Power Talk. We're going to take the news with Nyakalo Tifu.
Power News.
Thanks, Mbuyiseni. The top stories at this hour. At least 12 people have died in a major bus accident on the R21 North split near Kempton Park. And Parliament chairperson of the Standing Committee on Appropriations says the country's fiscus cannot sustain the social relief disgrace grant. With the news at 11, a very good morning to you. Amnyakallo Tefu. At least 12 people have died in a major bus accident on the R21 North Split near Kempton Park, where the bus overturned. According to Ekurhuleni Emergency Management, the crash occurred early this morning while the bus was travelling from Katlehong to Kempton Park. Authorities are still investigating the scene and 4 lanes have been closed as a result. Motorists are advised to expect severe traffic delays and use alternative routes. Ekurhuleni EMS's William Ntladi.
A bus has jackknifed, rolled several times, and unfortunately in that accident we have accounted this far 12 fatalities, all of them adults, then 9 are males and 3 are females. The entire freeway is still closed. Number of other patients that are injured have been transported to various hospitals.
Parliament chairperson of the Standing Committee on Appropriations, Mmusi Maimane, says the country's fiscus cannot sustain the social relief disgrace grant. With the finance minister set to deliver the rescheduled budget speech, the issue on how to reduce expenditure has seen the SRD grant matter come to the fore. Yesterday, Parliament's finance cluster held a media briefing in Cape Town to deliberate on some of their expectations of the budget speech. Power News reporter Nkosinathi Shazi files this report.
In the lead-up to the budget speech on Wednesday by Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana, the 370 Rand SRD grant has come under the spotlight. Introduced during the COVID-19 pandemic, the Social Relief Distress Grant was intended to be a short-term solution. However, it has been extended multiple times. The current extension of the SRD grant is scheduled to end on the 31st of March in 2026. According to the National Treasury, the budget estimates for the SRD grant is just over 33 billion rand, which is sufficient to cover only 8 million beneficiaries. In documents shared prior to the postponement of the budget speech, the finance minister had planned to raise the value-added tax from 15% to 17%, which would generate an additional 58 billion rand in revenue. Chairperson of the Standing Accounts on Appropriations, Mmusi Maimane, made these remarks on the SRD grant.
Is the most crucial, which is the conversation we're having about the SRD grant and whether or not any expenditure frame will be able to sustain the SRD expenditure that we're looking at, which is sitting at about 37 billion rands as things stand at the moment. So between bailouts, SRD, it becomes common cause that if you are going to look at the budget and being able to balance the figures, you need to look at how to reduce expenditure and increase efficiencies in the budget.
Nkosinathi Shazi, Power News.
Meanwhile, as the finance minister's budget speech draws nearer, at least one analyst believes the 7.5 million women serving as primary income earners of their households need a tailored financial planning system to mitigate the unique challenges they face daily. With roughly 45% of households being headed by women, pressure is on government to raise awareness on income protection in this current economic climate. Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana will present the 2025 budget speech in the National Assembly tomorrow, where he is expected to introduce the appropriation bill and present the 2025 division of revenue bill. Economic training specialist Melody Clet says women should adequately educate themselves regarding income protection as financial instability continues due to the government of national unity.
Number one thing, educate yourself. Take advantage of all the many educational resources that are freely available. Read personal finance blog books, listen to podcasts, and build financial knowledge. Secondly, track expenses and budget wisely. A budget helps create financial stability. And by tracking expenses and following a plan, a budget makes it easier to pay bills on time, build an emergency fund, and save for major expenses such as a car or a home. Overall, a budget puts a person on stronger financial footing for both the day-to-day and the long-term needs.
Clewett also emphasized the importance of an emergency fund.
Build yourself an emergency fund. Creating a financial safety net will help you to deal with emergencies without impacting on your monthly budget. So even if you just start small, start putting money aside in a savings account or some sort of investment every month to start building up that emergency fund.
And KwaZulu-Natal's Provincial Commissioner, Lieutenant General Dr Mbuyiseni, alongside his senior officials, are set to engage business stakeholders and other role players this morning. The Commissioner aims to fundraise support for crime-fighting programs, initiatives and strategies within the province. Meanwhile, during the release of the crime statistics for the third quarter of the 2023-2024 financial year, Police Minister Senzo Mkhulu reported that KZN contributes approximately 21.4% to the national murder rate. Mkhulu expressed concerns.
Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal remain the highest contributors to the overall national murder figures, accounting for 25.0%, 21.4% respectively, followed by the Eastern Cape at 18.9% and Western Cape at 17.4%. Rape cases have increased in KwaZulu-Natal and Mpumalanga and the Free State, whereas other provinces have recorded decreases. This data serves as a stark reminder that gender-based violence remains a critical issue requiring intensified interventions.
A look at your financial indicators. The rand is trading at 18 rand 26 cents to the US dollar, 23 rand 60 cents to the pound, 19 rand 92 cents to the euro. Gold's trading at $2,909.27 a fine ounce. Our Brent crude oil is at $69.53 a barrel. Recapping the top story in Panis at this hour, at least 12 people have died in a major bus accident on the R21 North Split near Kempton Park.
Power News. On FM, online, and DSTV channel 889. This is Power 98.7.
Your daily dose of great and insightful conversations, preparing you for the day ahead. Power Talk on Power 98.7.
Welcome back to Power Talk. We are still speaking to the question of Eastern DRC. And in this segment, we're going to be speaking to the leaders of M23 as well as community leaders of the Banyamulenga, or who are operating and organizing in the Eastern DRC. But before that, I just want to bring back Dr. Kingsley Makhubela. I'm not going to draw you in, Ndade Makhubela, to the question of South African business interests there, but just your sort of diplomatic solutions, recommendations on the way forward. And maybe we will bring you back, because I think the true debate must be held not quite with the soldiers, but with the International Solidarity, International Relations Department and Ministry about the terms of reference of this mission. But just your thoughts on the diplomatic solutions that we should be pursuing.
Dr. Ndlozi, there are three elements in terms of resolving any conflict. There's peacemaking, which is non-cohesive. That's essentially a diplomatic effort where you interact with all warring factors. You try to find a positive sum solution to their problem. And you look at the level of compromises, who can compromise on what, and what are the things that are so dear to them that they won't let go. But these issues must relate basically to them, not to the others. In this case, Banyamulenge, they are an integral part of the DRC. They will not be they won't let go of their identity as Congolese. So that's one element in terms of trying to integrate that within the Congolese. Then this is a peacemaking. Then you have peacekeeping, which we've spoken about. There must be peace that exists to go and really try to sell this peace and ensure that all parties to the conflict, they agree to that. Then you have the peace enforcement, that anyone who violates this action must be taken against them. So these are totally different concepts as they are. The East African community sent a mission there, which was essentially a peacemaking mission, military mission, that was headed by Uhuru Kenyatta. When they arrived there, the DRC government wanted them to go and play a support role to the DRC government, and they refused. They are not going to fight along the soldiers. Once they refused, they were kicked out of the DRC. That's a fact. And Tshisekedi then relied on inviting the SADC mission to replace that, and he managed to do that, exactly what the East African community refused to do. The focus this time around, and President Mbeki is quite correct, this is not an issue to be resolved through military. It's essentially a political issue that requires really serious compromises, mainly by the government side, to integrate these people into the conflict. So you need somebody or some people who can interact with this. I'm glad they have appointed a panel of 3 people that include OBJ, Uhuru Kenyatta, and the former Prime Minister of Ethiopia. I mean, Obasanjo. We usually refer to him as OBJ. So those are the 3 people who have been tasked to go and try to find a solution to the conflict. And we hope that they will get deep into those issues. They'll set up a very good technical team around them to look into what we call, Mbuyiseni, intractabilities in conflict. They keep on changing. What was relevant 2 years ago may be overtaken by certain issues, and you can't hold on to 2 years ago. You got to look at current issues that are really driving the conflict and try to resolve those ones and go back. So I hope these people who have been appointed will interact with everyone to try to find solutions. You have 120, I'm told, civil militia groups in that part of the DRC, in Kivu, both North and South Kivu. So it's going to be a huge challenge because in the process, Mbuyiseni, the Eastern DRC has become very profitable in terms of war economy. All sorts of transnational criminal syndicates and so on are operating there. And as long as the supply chain and the logistics, the global supply chain and the logistics is not interrupted, and the supply keeps on going of mineral, as Victor was speaking about those really important mineral resources that are there, the world will be quite comfortable with that until there's a disruption of the logistics and supply. That's when people start to want to do something about the conflict in the DRC.
Thank you very much for your grace, Babu Makubela. We'll definitely be bringing you back because I do think that there is an aspect of international relations and the terms of reference of that mission that has to be explored, and we must hold them accountable in relation to that. But thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you. We've got, if you've just joined us, this is Power Talk with me, Mbuyiseni Ndlozi, and we are speaking about the situation in the Eastern DRC. We have on the line the spokesperson of the M23, and but before we engage with him, we've got a community leader, Adele Kibasumba, and I apologize if my pronunciations have been wrong, but she is a community organizer and humanitarian, currently serving as president of Mahoro Peace Association, which advocates for Congolese minorities that include the Banyamulenge and the Hema people in the Eastern DRC. Welcome to Power Talk, Adele, and thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, that's the first question really is which we wanted is to paint the situation for us today. What is happening at the moment? We are hearing that there is a ceasefire and that there are generally peaceful conditions that are prevailing at the moment. Can you take us through what is the situation in the community at the moment?
Again, thank you so much for having me. I think that the areas that have been liberated by the M23 in North Kivu and Bukavu are peaceful. We don't hear any fightings. However, the ceasefire is only maybe talked about in the media. Minembwe, which is a stronghold of Banyamulenge people, where they actually originate, and the remaining of Banyamulenge in the Eastern DRC are cramped up in Minembwe, and it's under heavy Sukhoi drone attacks. Just yesterday in the morning, there were heavy Sukhoi attacks on the airstrip of Minembwe. I wish I can show you videos. This is the area where there's no longer any presence of the FRDC, which is the regular army. It has been defeated in this area after 7 years of basically oppression and terrorizing the community there. So there's no presence of the army there. It's basically empty. There's no national force there, but somehow they're still managing to bomb this area, and it's really not even a town. It's almost like a conglomerate of villages, and they're bombing it, and it's full of children who are going to school. There's no even any fair warning of anything, and they're just bombing, and the community is very terrorized by this. Just recently they assassinated the leader of the self-defense group of Banyamulenge called Twigwaneho. The leader was General Rukunda Makanika, who was loved by the community, but very known in the region because he did serve in the regular army after he defected to go protect his community in Minembwe. So he was assassinated by a drone attack in his stronghold in Minembwe. So all to say that the ceasefire is only maybe talked about in the media or on paper, but in real sense on the ground, the DRC is still waging a war against its own people.
You spoke earlier, and this will be my last question, about how the sort of official DRC army had presided over that area and oppressed the people, specifically, the minorities in your language, but the Banyamulenge people. How does this go? Can you just describe for us that oppression and why?
So if you allow me to just give you a brief background of who Banyamulenge people are. Banyamulenge people are Congolese Tutsi ethnic group that lived that lived in Congo that we know today since 400 years ago. So they originate from pre-colonial Rwanda and Burundi, and they have coexisted with other tribes in the region peacefully until there was a rebellion called Mulele in 1961 that all the neighboring tribes started fighting the Mobutu government. Instead of targeting the government forces, they started targeting the Banyamulenge people. And as a result, the Banyamulenge sided with the government at the time of Mobutu, and they fought together and defeated the Mulele rebellion. And since then, the relationship with the neighboring communities was damaged, you may say. And since then, they started doubting our nationality. We got to a point where in 1960s, we had an MP called Gisaro Muhoza who has passed on. May God rest him in peace. He fought to find a way to to assert the Banyamulenge identity as Congolese, as we are indigenous to Congo that we know today, because we're there before the Congo was divided by the colonizers. So we started even thinking of how do we even change our name to basically deconstruct the concept that Banyamulenge are from Rwanda, or the refugees from Rwanda, or the foreigners, because we kept our culture of the language that is similar to Rwanda that we know today, but we were there, way before Congo was even a country. So we even adopted the name Banyamulenge in 1970s, championed by this MP, late MP Muhoozi Gisaro. But even after he died, the Congolese politicians started finding ways to exclude us from, participating in a political process in the country. They started saying, you can vote, but you can't vote it in. And that continues to exacerbate the situation for the Banyamulenge. And now we're in 1970s. The Molele started in 1960s. And then leading up to that, they had a national conference on sovereignty of Congo in Eastern DRC back in 1990s. This is when they made a commission to decide on whether Banyamulenge or Tutsis in general in Congo are indeed Congolese or not. And that commission declared that the Banyamulenge Tutsis of the Tutsis of South Kivu, which are Banyamulenge, and Tutsis in North Kivu, are now Congolese, and they ought to be expelled from their country to Rwanda. And you have to remember in 1990s what was happening in Rwanda. There was just a genocide going on. And now you are taking people from the indigenous people in this country because they're related to the Rwandese Tutsis. Now you have to expel them back into a country that is not theirs, but also the community in that country is facing also an extermination. And indeed, after the conference, the governor of South Kivu, then Luabanji, they gave 77 days ultimatum to Tutsis, Congolese Tutsis, to leave a humanitarian days, I guess, to leave DRC or face extermination. And then after that, that's when you had the first Congo War, right? So I'm going to spare your listeners from, the whole Congo War all the way to where we are now. I'm just going to come to where we are now and how everyone is hearing about this. So in South Kivu, since 2017, Banyamulenge people again were faced with an extermination again campaign, where there over 85% of their villages have been looted, destroyed. Banyamulenge people are cattle holders. They don't mine. They don't even own businesses in mine. They love cattle. They have hundreds of it. And in South Kivu, when it comes to cattle, that's a source of a huge economy in South Kivu. And Banyamulenge hold that. They really had the purchasing power in South Kivu, especially in the highland, because of their cattle. So 500,000 of their cattle were stolen, sold to public markets that are secured by the government soldiers. A lot of the areas where Banyamulenge lived, they had MONUSCO stationed there. They had, that's the UN peacekeeping mission. They had government forces stationed within few kilometers to where Banyamulenge lived. But you had the local militias that your guest was just talking about. There's hundreds of militia in South and North Kivu. All those militias, they have one common enemy, the Banyamulenge, the Tutsi people. And so they all gang up to attack one community against all. And then you have the government forces also allying or joining forces with these militia to help them to basically give them tactical support, to basically, do harm to Banyamulenge civilians. And what did Banyamulenge do? They formed the same self-defense group called Twigwaneho since 2017 with no external support to defend their civilians, to defend their people. And that's where we are now. And I just told you they just yes, go ahead.
Yeah. Just one last question, because I'm really pressed with time. What has been the role of the South African Army and the sort of SADC peace, so-called SADC mission and peacekeeping forces, have they in any way played a role in a defense of the Banyamulenge people?
The Southern African Force was stationed in I think in Goma and North Kivu. No, they did not. They didn't come to defend Banyamulenge. They didn't come to defend anyone. They came to help the Congolese forces to do whatever they were doing. And what they were doing, the Congolese forces was doing, was arming all these militia. All those 100 militias that I was telling you about, all of them were solidified and made into a force called Wazalendo. And those Wazalendo are the ones that killed the Banyamulenge. They work with the FDLR, which is the remnants of the Rwandese genociders, the Hutus. Well, it's not all the Hutus, but it's really they harbor the genocidal ideology against Tutsi people, whether it be in Rwanda or in Congo. Those are the allies of those hundreds of militias, and they join force with the Congolese government. They join forces with the Sami DRC. They join forces with the Burundian under the bilateral agreement in DRC to fight M23, to fight the Twirwaneho in South Kivu as a very self-defense group that literally is defending a persecuted community. Not once I've even heard declaration from South Africa to say that yes, we are with the DRC government for our own interest, but we are against the persecution of minority. Not once I've heard that. And I think, growing up, we heard South Africa as having the moral authority. It has helped DRC in the past conflict to bring DRC together to mitigate all these conflicts, but it has lost that leadership. It's now drawn into a war, literally, against an ethnic cleansing, or one may say a genocide against the Banyamulenge people.
Adele Kibasumba, thank you very much for joining us and for painting the situation. If you've just joined us, this is Power Talk with me, Mbuyiseni Ndlozi. We're speaking to a community leader, Adele Kibasumba. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you and all the best. When we come back from the headlines, we speak to the spokesperson of M23, and we are going to try in that 30 minutes, and really the time is an enemy here, to understand and to have them speak for themselves to the South African public. What is their cause and what is their reply to the accusations that they are just a terrorist group? Are they terrorists or are they freedom fighters? And we're going to hear all of that from the spokesperson of M23 when we come back from the headlines with Nyakalo Tifu.
Thanks, Mbuyiseni. Good morning once again. In news-making headlines at this hour, police continue to maintain strong presence along different Soweto taxi routes amid escalating tensions between rival taxi associations. The ongoing dispute is between the Nansfield Dube West Taxi Association and the Witwatersrand African Taxi Association. Nandua drivers yesterday blocked several roads in Mfulo, saying WATA is not allowed to operate on identified routes. A Joburg Metro Police vehicle responding to the standoff got involved in an accident that claimed the lives of 2 pedestrians. Nandua has since suspended its operations. Nandua Public Relations Officer Joseph Ngabo says the association will hold an urgent meeting this afternoon to map a way forward.
Inhlangano yenanduwe sazohlangana manje sibona ukuthi siya kanjani phambili neyinqola zimile asisebenzi ngoba ubusave bo driver vele kubaleke kabi ngoba nathi sinelungelo eSouth Africa siyabanikazi bale ndawo nathi nabo lafethu banendawo zabo abasebenza kuzo abangaphazanyiswa umuntu lezi ndawo ezenanduwe sihlukanisiwe lezi ndawo baba.
In other news, residents of Lethabong informal settlements far east of Mamelodi are marching to the office of a community liaison officer in Benarsport Extension 10. They are protesting over service delivery, accusing their councillor of failing to bring new development to the area, unlike other townships in Tshwane. Their complaints include poorly resourced schools, clinics, and lack of water and electricity. Speaking to Power News, community representative Sesi Malaza says there has been empty promises since their relocation from squatter camps in 2010.
Reason ya hore ka tse ko re tle mo re latelle motho o bitswang hore ke ntate Magagula is because ntwe ngwe le ngwe o re e tshwere ke yena. O tlile go community ya rena a introduceiwa ha fetso introduceiwa a re yena o tlo bereka ka transparency yena o bereka le councilor ke letsogo la councilor mara community ya rena ya safara ke bolela le lena so a rena ditsela a rena di toilet tsela di bodile di tswa di boko no a ke tse hele hore ba di cleaner ba di cleaner ha byang a ke itse wa itse re ka mohara mathata maholo.
More on these and other stories at 12.
Think bigger than just a banking partner. Think a team of specialized experts supporting you to make better financial decisions to enable your growth aspirations. Think a strategic partnership, providing indispensable advice to help you make the right moves. Think bigger. Think Nedbank Commercial Banking. For more information, visit nedbank.co.za. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider.
The Proudly SA Buy Local Summit and Expo is happening on the 17th and 18th of March at the Sandton Convention Center. Tune in to Power Talk with Mbuyiseni Ndlozi on Monday, 17 March from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. for a special live broadcast from the event. Join us as we bring you exclusive insights and unpack key topics, including the challenges facing local industries, the fight against illicit trade, and the impact of buying local on our economy. Buying local creates jobs. Be proudly South African. Brought to you by Proudly SA. Register for free attendance at proudlysa.co.za.
Stay informed. Power Talk with Mbuyiseni Ndlozi, 9 a.m. to midday on Power 98.7.
Yes, that's Power Talk with me, Mbuyiseni Ndlozi. And if you've just joined us, we are speaking about the situation in the Eastern DRC. And I'm going to welcome now on the line the spokesperson of M23, which people keep mentioning, Lawrence Kanyuka. Welcome to Power Talk.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thanks for creating time. We're going to start right, on the basics. What is M23, and what is your cause? What is your mission?
M23, for instance, as you mentioned, M23 is an acronym from movement of March 23rd that came to life the refusal by the DRC government to implement the agreement of March 23rd, 2009.
What was the agreement? Hello? Yes, I'm still here. Are you still there?
Yes.
What was this? What was this? What was this agreement?
The peace agreement signed on 23rd of March 2009. That peace agreement was to end the war that was happening at the time between the CNDP and the DRC government. So that peace agreement is supposed to be implemented by the DRC government. And the DRC government refused to implement the actual agreement. Those people who surrounded themselves through this agreement, which were the soldiers and the politicians from the CNDP, were all targeted. They were started being killed by the DRC government. So from that kind of massacre that was happening and the refusal to actually implement that peace agreement, small numbers of...
excuse me, Lawrence, we are struggling to hear you adequately. I don't know whether it's the network on your side. We really want the South African public to know what M23 stands for, where M23 is from, what are they fighting for, what is their mission, and we need to hear you clearly. So my producers are going to try and reconnect us so that we can get a proper line. If you've just joined us, this is Power Talk with me, Mbuyiseni Ndlozi. We're trying to get to the bottom of what is happening in the Eastern DRC. As you have heard earlier, we had an interesting conversation with the general of the South African Army, who indicated that our army is still there, and our army essentially is at the moment not really doing much. They are under a ceasefire agreement with M23 that has taken over Goma, and we also established that the mission is not a peacekeeping mission. Very important, and we need to get the South Africans, and we'll try to get the international relations department and the ministry to confirm this, basically to agree to not just agree, but to accept that the mission there was not and is not a peacekeeping mission. It is basically governed by a different set of international law, and also the fact that South Africa is not there to stay in the camp. If they're staying in the camp, if they are in the camp, then they're not there fulfilling a mission that they were sent there for. If you want to join the conversation, we'll take your calls on 0861-987-000, and our WhatsApp line is 083-303-7093. We had a community leader as well, Adele, who is part of the minorities on Eastern DRC, specifically the people of Banyamulenge, who are facing ethnic, tribalistic discrimination and attack. And we have heard from her, this is not a politician, this is a community leader who was outlining not only the history of the persecution of the people in the Eastern DRC, specifically the Banyamulenge people, by the official army in DRC, which is supported in her view by the South African Army. She made very, very worrying comments about the loss of moral ground by the South African Army there, which is seen to be supporting the DRC Army that persecutes the Banyamulenge people on a daily basis. Very important. But as I said, we'll try to get back to the spokesperson of M23 there. The key question for us is M23 a terrorist group? Or are they freedom fighters? And if they are freedom fighters, why are we fighting them? Why? On the basis of what constitutional values is a South African deployment against the people that are defending themselves facing a genocide? Very important. And as I said, you can join the conversation 0861-987-000 here on Power Talk with me, Mbuyiseni Ndlozi. We're going to take Mayu Vaughn in Pretoria. Mama, welcome to Power Talk.
Thank you so much, Mbuyiseni, and welcome to Power. My question and input was going to be to Kingsley Makubela, but I think it's not unrelated to what you're discussing with your guests there. It is about, the latest is that Tshisekedi, DRC has invited the U.S. to come and do mining there in exchange for military support, almost like a Zelensky, Ukraine, Russia conflict situation. And that's worrisome because it means the conflict is going to be having other dynamics, and the people, South Africa is going to be immersed in more conflict that we don't need, and then it means also the people there will be under threat. meaning that this is not going to end. It's just going to keep increasing and widening. So next time, I would like Kingsley to also address it, but you can do that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mama Yvonne there from Pretoria, about U.S. interests as well that are getting to articulate through the invitation of the president of DRC, come and mine in exchange for military protection. Bonga from Olivedale, welcome to Power Talk.
Futhi kama kanjani?
Siyaphila njani?
Hayi siyaphila futhi siyakwamukela. But
ngiyabonga.
Sosijwayela nje sizophinde sizozwana siphinde sixabane zonke into. Siyezwana nje la ekhaya sekungena omusha. But let's talk about DRC. The painful thing that is happening there is the greed of African leaders. African leaders are greedy that they don't value human life. It's easy to just then align themselves to what they will benefit, and then they will then make this ethnicity problem is econ, because at the end of the day they will be benefiting out of it. That's a painful thing. You guys who are learned, you have done researches about this ethnicity and everything. The painful thing that is happening in DRC to our fellow brothers in Africa, it's because of this greed in our leaders, including our, because they are benefiting out of this. They are gaining things. It's so painful. I always tell people that they are the dangerous people that we have in our land are those that have, and then we have believed that they acquired everything that they have innocently or honestly. We believed that, and then we didn't check them properly. That is why it's easy for somebody to say a concocted what was said in Donmin, in Marikana. The action,
concomitant action.
Yes, the big English.
Big English.
It's those things, those painful things. It's so easy to just discard a life because of this greediness. It's so painful, Mbuyiseni. Yabona mawuzobuka iZimbabwe, it's the same story. Mawubuka Mozambique, it's the same story. We are living with these brothers in the ground. When they tell you the movies that are happening in their countries, you feel sad. These guys don't value African lives, and then yet we are calling them African leaders.
Thank you very much, Bonga.
Thank you, Putin.
Thank you. That's Bonga from Olivedale. If you just joined us, this is Power Talk with me, Mbuyiseni Ndlozi. We are taking your calls on 0861987000. We heard from several speakers. We're still trying to reconnect to the spokesperson of M23 about the situation in the Eastern DRC. What we can confirm, number one, is that the terms of reference for the South African presence, including SADC mission there in the DRC, is not a peacekeeping mission. It is based on different legislation and the international law. And Dr. Makubela explaining there that once the M23 took over Goma, what we are supposed to call the presence of the army of South Africa there, which is living at the mercy of M23, is that they are now prisoners of war, and that can be extrapolated under the Geneva Convention. Very important for us to properly and truthfully name what is happening in the DRC. Naomi, welcome to Power Talk. Naomi from Pretoria.
Hi, Mbuyiseni. First time caller, but I'm your biggest friend. But the reason why I called, I was just telling your producers that thank God you have someone like you, because I think you're taking us through a journey. Journalism has been disrupted in a way because, we've been given one side and you are coming in with the other side. And, it really makes us to, broaden our view and think deep. And thank God for that. The other thing is that the lady that was talking, why are they not going to United Nations so that their grievances can be heard? Because it's more like the world is only listening to the one side. It's one-sided. Is there a way of taking this so that we can have a balanced view? And I'm saying this because if you think about someone in the township, they only know one side, and we are all joining up against this side, and we don't have a balanced view, So my question is that how do we take this to United Nations so that people can have a balanced view of what is happening in the world?
Thank you very much, Naomi. We'll certainly pursue that question with regards to the situation in the DRC. I think we've got Lawrence back, the spokesperson of M23. Lawrence, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. I've got like 10 minutes left, but I really would like you to take this opportunity and explain to the South African public what is M23 and what is your mission?
The M23, as it stands, is a movement of March 23rd, derived from the peace agreement of March 23rd, 2009. That agreement wasn't implemented by the DRC government, and those military and political partners of CNDP, those who actually did the negotiation with the DRC government back then in 2009, was actually being persecuted, killed, and massacred. So a group of military and political put themselves together and started to request the DRC government to implement the said agreement. So on the 5th of May 2012, actually the M23 was born. And since then, the M23 advocate for the freedom of Congo, asking the DRC government to stop killing people, to stop spreading apartheid, these policies within the community, dividing people, exclusion, denying nationality, bad governance, and killing every constituted population. So this was the forward issue that M23 still asking the DRC government to stop Congolese, to stop killing Congolese. We asked the DRC government to negotiate, to sit down on the table, to speak about the root causes of the conflict. Why over the years we have examples of war in the DRC, and now to sit down on the DRC.
Lawrence, we are still struggling. I think maybe what we'll try to do, I'll please hold on again for our producers, because the network is still very cantankerous. We are struggling to hear you, and it's very important for me that the public in South Africa hears you directly, without us saying what you stand for, without us saying what is it that you are trying to achieve in the Eastern DRC, so that we really deepen this question of our presence as the South African Army. You are trying to achieve. What are we doing there? When the reports of the DRC Army is that they are engaged in persecution of the Banyamulenga people on tribalistic ethnic grounds. They are engaged. Why would we support such an army? Why would we be reinforcing such an army? and we didn't get a chance. We're going to ask him as well about what are they doing at the moment with regards to the camps of both the South African soldiers and the Tanzanians that are still there, so that we understand, are these soldiers of South Africa in a hostage situation? Are they prisoners of war? What is the relationship, and how are they living from the point of view of the people that have taken over Goma, which is the M23? If you've just joined us, this is Power Talk with me, Mbuyiseni Ndlozi, and we are still trying to reconnect with the M23 spokesperson. We'll try, if we can't get him in this segment, we'll try to do a pre-recording of a conversation with him once we get a stable network. But let's take your calls. Since 10 o'clock, you've heard for yourself, you've heard the experts from here in the country, you've heard the general of our own army speaking there about what the mission is. You've heard diplomats. Babuma Kubela has been a diplomat, has been an ambassador in and around the Great Lakes, in and around East Africa, and stating it in no equivocal terms there that calling that mission a peacekeeping mission is misleading, and the government of South Africa needs to stop calling that mission a peacekeeping mission. And to the extent to which it was reinforcing the DRC army, it has failed, because M23 has taken over Goma. And not only has it taken Goma, the situation of the South African soldiers can be described as prisoners of war. We'll get the International Relations Department to respond to those intimations. Let's take your calls, 0861987000 here on Power Talk. George in Soshanguve, welcome to Power Talk.
Mdokodela.
Nda.
Asihlabe ngenjection isizwe lenda.
Yebo baba.
Mdokodela bona, how can we say our soldiers, they are there for peacekeeping, whereas we have already lost 14 soldiers, 14 lives, my brother? 14 lives. How can we lost 14 lives, whereas we're there for peacekeeping? And then when I'm listening, when you interviewed the previous guest, so ngizwile achaza kahle ukuthi no, there is no peace there. There's no peace. There's still a war there. So that means our soldiers, they are there in a war. Yeah. So generally, the way I should no, our soldiers, they are in a good standing there. No, it's not like that. That place, what we are waiting for in this Africa, is to kill these blacks, and then someone will come and take the place, and then bayibuse. Sibulalana sodwa, and then bayeza abanye bazolithatha lelizwe leli balibuse ngoba siyawuceda lo mbala wethu lo. Umuntu omnyama mangabamba nethi nje ukuthi iposition mangathola iposition is more ngathi babona ama opportunities ukuthi how can we grow impilo zabo bakhohlwe ngempilo zabanye abantu. Ngiyabonga mfowethu.
Thank you very much, George from Soshanguve. Let's take Steve Lebelo. Welcome to Power Talk.
Hi, Dr. Ndlozi.
Yes,
for the past 2 hours, we have listened to just one orthodoxy about what's happening in DRC.
Steve, your line is very, very bad. I don't know if you can move around. Let's try again. No, we cannot. No, we can't get a clear line there with Steve. If you've just joined us, this is Power Talk with me, Mbuyiseni Ndlozi, and we had a big conversation throughout. And I think that just to also highlight the idea that there is a lot of international and business interests, some of the minerals that are significant for the technology of the fourth industrial revolution, specifically artificial intelligence, are found in that part of the world. Lots of business interest as well from South Africa. Victor was painting them there for us. And we're painting this situation to try and understand precisely the conditions and our involvement. I mean, isn't it time to ask this question? If South Africa is conflicted, can it really be on a peacekeeping mission in the DRC? Let's take Penny from Pretoria. Welcome to Power Talk.
Okay. Thank you so much, Dr. Mbuyiseni. Earlier I had the lady Kiba Zumba talking about Banyamulenge and issues regarding the Eastern DRC.
Yes.
I'm from Uganda, but I live here. So it's unfortunate that the issues in DRC are really distorted. And it's so unfortunate that what is taking place in DRC, especially in Eastern DRC, at the border of Rwanda, it can't be reduced to Banyamulenge ethnic group. It's a very, very big strength for me to hear that as a Tutsi. Because what has been happening in DRC has affected so many people. And if we want peace in DRC, it's good to be fair and also see other people's plight, other people's sadness, other people's suffering. But when you hear a person just taking one narrative, it's so hard and it's heartbreaking. Because if we are to really solve problems, we've got to be genuine and look at the problem and the root cause of what is happening in Congo. It's more deep. It's more than, seeing it in the middle of Banyamulenge, as much as I recognize the sufferings of Banyamulenge. But what is happening in DRC, with my little knowledge, I can't say that I know all. It's a proxy war. It's a proxy war. It's a power. It's economical. Because I guess as much as there are a lot of problems in that part of the country, it can't be that it's dragging for almost 30 years. I think the issue here is hidden. The issue here, the underlying causes are more than what we can just see with our own eyes. So it's about our political leaders to be serious and to be considerate for the people that are dying in that region. And come to terms and, genuineness that, they can deal with issues. We're talking and actually putting interests of people than their own interests. So that's why I'm saying that really, as much as Kiba Zumba is talking about Banyamulenge, it's not even a problem. And I don't think that the Congolese government is just out there and South African troops and Tanzanian troops to support those militias who are actually attacking Banyamulenge. I don't think that is a proper narrative. That's what I can say. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Penny, there from Pretoria. Whatever the conditions, no matter how complicated, no matter how deep, the one thing from our side is going to solve and stabilize the Eastern DRC situation. We have to campaign for a peaceful resolution of uniting the DRC. All the minority ethnic groups, all the people that are articulating different business and social interests, one agreement we have to reach is that war is not going to solve the situation in the DRC. That's all from us today in Power Talk with me, Mbuyiseni Ndlozi, and the team. Till we meet again tomorrow, same time, 9 to 12. Dintanda nonke makaya. Let's take the news with Nyakalo Defu.
Power News.
Thanks, Mbuyiseni. The top stories at this hour. Additional witnesses are expected to testify this morning as the trial into Jocelyn Smith's disappearance continues, and police continue to maintain strong presence along different Soweto taxi routes amid escalating tensions between rival taxi associations. With the news at 12, a very good afternoon to you. I'm Nyakallo Tefu. Additional